This is episode number 51 of Thursday Ketchup, where we discuss our week in shows, games, and whatever else we have going on, or at least we usually do. I'm Andrew, and no co-host this week, no guest. Had planned on having Vincent on, but he had a bit of a family emergency and couldn't make it this week, so just get me talking to myself. How exciting. So if you see some long breaks, that's going to be me getting a drink or something. Hopefully I can edit some of those out so it doesn't sound too awful. This week I'm going to go over almost all of the games for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System Classic, I guess is the fancy term for it. The SNES Classic would be what it actually is. The one game I won't be going over is Star Fox 2, as it is new, and I have never played it, so I don't really have any way of reviewing it or saying anything about it. So starting off at number 20. What I consider a weird game to have on the list. I didn't really even consider this when thinking of games that I would have put on the system. Kirby's Dream Course. I actually own this game. I think I've played it a couple times, and it is not terribly fun. Even as somebody who enjoys golf games, even some weird niche ones, like those free-to-play ones you see on Flash sites, this one just feels weird. From what I remember of playing it, there's just not a lot going on to it. I watched some videos to catch up on kind of the idea of the game, and it just didn't look very fun. It was very basic, very simplistic, a lot of just line up what you're trying to hit at and hope that you don't hit the button wrong. It's like the wait until the meter fills up and then press it. Kind of boring. Instead, I would have added one of my personal favorites sports games from the system, NBA Jam, either the regular or tournament edition. I remember having a lot of fun playing this game. I always played as the Pacers. For some reason, I really liked Reggie Miller. I have no idea why. But he was one of my favorite players of the time, so I'd always play as him and Rick Smits and whoever that other guy was, who I never tried to play with because he wasn't very good. So there's a lot of shooting threes with Reggie Miller. A lot of good times. I remember also finding out all the codes to play as weird secret characters like Bill Clinton and stuff like that. I think you could play as the kids from Home Improvement. All kinds of weird stuff like that. It was kind of funny. It made it a pretty fun game. It also has the ability to, since there's 2 players for the system, I don't actually know if it comes with both controllers, if you have to get the second one separate. I should probably have checked on that. But that was a really fun game to play with people or against. You could either play with the person you were playing with on the same team, since there were 2 people on each team, or play against them and you would each control one of the people on the other team. Just playing as the different characters. It was a really fun sports game, and even more fun to play with other people. So I would have definitely added that. Of course, licensing probably was the biggest issue with this game. Getting all those players to sign off on doing that, probably not going to happen. So I can understand not having this or any of the other licensed games. NHL 94 would be my other choice as a really, really good sports game, but of course, getting player names, it would be a lot easier in the NHL game since you don't actually see the player's name when you're playing. All you see is their numbers, so it wouldn't be that big of a deal to change it over and just not have the names. Number 19 on my list, Super Ghouls and Ghosts. This is basically just a up-resed version of the Nintendo game that was not very fun. A lot of people point to it being incredibly difficult and unfair. It's also really repetitive. The items you get are always the same in each thing. The monsters are always the same and interact in a similar manner, which was okay on Nintendo, but by the time you got to Super Nintendo, you wanted a little variety in your side scrolling. I can understand having things interact the same way over and over again. Because like even the really good games, like the Mario games on the system, were just set out in a way where this is what it is, find your way through it. But at least there were multiple ways to go about doing that. In this, it's very linear in what you can do, where you can go. There's not very many stages. 2 hits to die every time, no matter what. There's very limited power-ups and stuff like that. I just don't remember it being a very fun game. What I would have changed out, Maximum Carnage was a really fun game I remember playing. It's, again, side-scrolling, but more beat-em-up. Give like Final Fight, games like that are pretty fun. Of course, this one, having Spider-Man as the main character, would probably run into the same problems as NBA Jam, where you couldn't get the licensing for the characters again. So I could understand not being able to do it, but of course, the main thing most people remember is the actual cartridge from this game being a bright red, which was very unusual. I think there's only a couple other games for the Super Nintendo that had weird colored cases. So that was always pretty cool. And the game in general is just fun. There's a lot of like rip-off music from famous bands. Kind of how like they used to do in WCW, where they would rip off the music and just make like one note different or play it in a different key so it sounded slightly different, but they wouldn't have to pay anyone for it. But that's a really fun game. Next up, at number 18, is F-Zero. Hadn't played very much of this game, but it's a pretty standard racing game. It was like one of the very early release games for Super Nintendo, if I remember right. It's just nothing special. It's racing, but that's about it. Nothing too exciting. Instead, I would have replaced it with something they don't have on the list, is a space shooter. R-Type 3 would probably be the best game to fit that description. Flying around in space, collecting power-ups, being able to choose which power-ups you get is kind of fun. The R-Type games, much like Super Ghouls and Ghosts, can be rather frustrating at points, where you just keep repeating the same stage or area over and over again, because it's really difficult, but at the same time it's kind of fun. Being able to get all the power-ups and kind of switch things around would be a lot better. And you already have a racing game on the list, a much better racing game. You don't really need F-Zero on here. So I would definitely go with R-Type 3 as a better choice. Number 17, I have Super Punch-Out. A decent game. It's just very boring and repetitive. Once you learn what each of your opponents is doing, it's very easy to just make a plan and counter it. It's a lot of just duck out of the way or move out of the way when they do their special move and time it appropriately to punch them back. It's not a whole lot of variety to the game. You play as the same character the entire time. If you could play as like the special characters and get their special moves and stuff, it would be kind of cool. But they never had any of that. Boxing games are super rare, so I can see how this is kind of cool. But at the same time, I would have gone with what I consider probably the best beat-em-up game on the system and one of the more fun multiplayer games, Turtles in Time. A lot of fun with all of the Turtles games, especially on NES. Played a ton of 2 and 3 with my brothers. Always a good time playing as the different turtles. I was always Leonardo, I believe, mostly because he had the swords, which would give you the long reach. Him and Donatello were like the cheater versions of the turtles because they had the longer weapons. So they're always fun to play with. I think my brother always played, my older brother played as Raphael because he thought he was cool. Plus the size are pretty nice. Stabbing people with little daggers. Good times. And yeah, it's a really fun multiplayer game, which there weren't a ton of games on this list that were actually multiplayer. A lot of RPGs and stuff like that. A lot of single-player games. So having something like Turtles in Time, something you could play with other people, would be really fun. So I thought that would be a nice addition. Number 16, Contra 3. It's basically run to the right and shoot things, which is pretty much what every Contra game is, but it's fun. I remember Super C being another game I'd play with people and having a lot of fun doing it, especially on the stages where you had to like jump at the same time or kill each other. So actually having to work together in shooting games is kind of nice. Contra 3 is just kind of boring though. It's the same old power-ups, the same old guys, dodge the bullets, all that stuff. Instead, I would have rather had something like Super Smash TV. It's more of a top-down shooting game. Still two-player, you could play with other people. But you'd go room by room, killing a bunch of different enemies. There was all these different weapons. You were trying to grab prizes and stuff. And then at the end, it'd be like you grabbed a whole bunch of toasters. You get money for these. Of course, the money didn't actually buy you anything interesting, which would have been a nice addition. But you were just basically going for high score. There were bosses in each area. I don't remember making it very far without using Game Genie. I think we beat the game using Game Genie, but other than that, it's incredibly tough. It gets very difficult in the second set of stages. Even the first stage is somewhat difficult. Kind of reminds me a lot of Enter the Gungeon when you really think about it, except with a better variety, not variety, but more accessible weapons. Like each room would have several weapons you could get and use, and you wouldn't have to just wait to use them in special occasions. You get like rocket launchers and lasers and stuff like that, and you'd use them right away until they run out of ammo, which is pretty fun. So I definitely go with that over Contra 3. Number 15, Kirby Superstar. I'm really just not a big fan of Kirby games. They're alright, but the gameplay gets a little boring. The controls for Kirby are kind of what I would describe as slippery. He just kind of flails around everywhere. The platforming isn't great. When your character can just always fly all the time, it makes certain areas of the game just, okay, I'll just fly over this area, I guess. I remember doing that a lot in the later Kirby games. It's still a fun game, the base game is. I haven't really played much of the extra games on it. I imagine they're just like little mini games that aren't too terribly interesting or fun, so don't have to waste any time with those. I imagine they're like mobile games are now, but with Kirby in them, so you can just skip those. The regular game is okay. What I would have rather seen is a game most people probably haven't played called Demon's Crest. You're a demon, and you go around collecting different crests. The different crests give you different abilities. There's like a poison demon, stuff like that. And you just like equip the different ones to get past the different stages. What I remember of the game was really fun. There was an open map. You could fly to like the different temples and do things in different orders. And just an overall fun and different game. And I don't think a lot of people got to play it, so it would be nice to give people an opportunity. I mean, everybody's played a Kirby game. They don't do anything new or interesting in any Kirby games as far as I know, so having something like Demon's Crest instead would be pretty fun as a change of pace. Number 14, where I differ from a lot of lists I looked at that were ranking games, Yoshi's Island. Super Mario World 2, I believe it is unofficially called. I don't think it actually is a direct sequel. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't played very much of the game. It is very different from Super Mario World. You play as Yoshi, carrying around a baby Mario. And this is a game that is much better played without any sound, because anytime you get hit, Baby Mario goes flying away and cries until you pick him back up, which is really annoying. There's also like a whole egg throwing thing to the game where you have to aim and shoot at all the different enemies instead of just running around platforming and having fun. I remember that being really boring and not enjoying it. So I didn't play a whole lot of this game, so I can't put it too high on my list. I can understand a lot of people do like it, but it's just not a game for me. I don't remember enjoying it. Number 13, Star Fox. A lot of games had this towards the bottom of their rankings, but I remember having a lot of fun with this game. It was challenging at times, but not an annoying kind of challenging like earlier games in the list. An actual like fun, okay, what do I need to do here? Okay, I just need to be better and avoid things better. It's one of the first like flying simulation type games I remember playing, which was a lot of fun. Just like lasering down enemy planes, bombing things. Of course, Star Fox 64 is probably the best of that genre that I've ever played. Had some really fun stages, but the original Star Fox, not too bad. I think people gave it a bad rap because of the graphics. It's very polygon based, very simplistic in its design, but I kind of like that. I didn't need something fancy. Just wanted to fly around, shoot down people. Number 12, Super Castlevania 4. Not a bad side-scrolling game. Much better than Super Ghouls and Ghosts in that it wasn't annoyingly difficult. There were parts where you're like, okay, I need to be doing this and this and change things up. But not in a way where, okay, I got hit once, now I'm pretty much dead. There was a little more leeway. Variety of weapons is nice. Bosses were always fun to fight. I think the Castlevania games were better once they hit PlayStation, or more of the Metroidvania that you hear of, going around collecting different items, getting better swords and equipment as you go. But this game's not too bad. The platforming isn't terrible. There's still some annoying enemies like the Medusa heads and stuff flying around, if I remember right. It's been a while since I played this game, but I do remember it being fun for the most part. Number 11, Secret of Mana. This is one of those games that a lot of people would rank in their top 3 because was like a new variety of RPG, more of an action RPG than the standard turn-based and stuff like that. It's incredibly difficult though. I remember giving it several tries and always getting stuck in like the first dungeon, and that was like within recent years. It's very unforgiving. You have to do a lot of menuing. I don't like the menu system. It's weird how it's set up. The fighting's okay. I never really made it far enough in to get much of the story, so I can't really say too much about that. I know I've started this game like 10 times and never made it very far. It seems like a game that if I just gave it some time, it would be fun, but I've just never given it the chance. Same thing with like Secret of Evermore, which is a very, very similar game, of course, made by the same company and everything like that. I'm pretty sure it would make sense since they are both Secret of games. Just not something I enjoyed very much. So we're halfway through the list. Something I mentioned on Twitter, if you follow us on there, was that we will have some live shows coming up this year. I know that's a surprise, kind of came out of nowhere to everyone, but something I've been working on behind the scenes. Been talking to Joel about, we want to get out, meet the people, see what's going on, make some money is, kind of the main idea here. We'll tell you how to get tickets and all that. Just wanted to give you a breakdown of where we'll be, what days, so you guys can get ready. Get those wallets out. Starting off in Brattleboro, Vermont, November 31st. That'll be the kind of the kickoff. I think once we get going there, things will be pretty going smooth. We'll have things. We got like a whole show plan. We're going to do like trivia, do like a food talk because we talk about food a lot. Maybe Joel will do like an in-person ordering of pizza so you can see what he does there. Fun stuff like that. We'll follow that up in Milton, Delaware. No, I did not forget what the abbreviation DE stood for as far as states. That was totally planned break there. Yes, Milton, Delaware, December 12th. So people in Delaware, get ready. We're coming. Next up, Traverse City, Michigan, December 18th. That one's going to be really good. We're really going to do some traversing, some citying. I think Ben is planning on joining us for that one, so you'll get a live meeting of Ben. He's pretty nice. Next up, Anoka, Nebraska, December 25th. That one's just going to be a bad show. I don't recommend going to that one. Maybe you'll find something better to do on that date. I don't know. I don't think there's anything going on like late in December anyway. So next up, heading south, Mooresville, Alabama, December 31st. This will be, I think there's something going on that day, maybe. I'm not sure. This will be like a late show though. I'm thinking 11:15 start time. And these shows are going to run minimum 7 hours, so don't worry about getting there early. There'll be plenty of show to catch up on, because that's the title of the show. It's a clever joke. It's not clever at all. Where was I? Jean, Nevada, going all the way west next, January 1st. So that's going to be a long flight. Not sure we're going to be really up for that show. That may be a skippable one. You may just skip that one, because we're going to round it out. A town you may have heard of, Chalmette, Arizona, headlining January 5th. A certain dojo you may have heard of. Maybe. We're in talks. Sponsorship, perhaps, for the entire tour. We'll see. If you hear of some renaming in the coming months, that's what's going on. So yeah, that's the live tour. That's all the dates we have planned. Tickets available now. Just send me a message. I'll send you something. This is not completely made up. I know what you're thinking. This is a real thing. This is definitely happening. I didn't just look up smallest towns in the US and then pick a bunch of random dates. Thursday Ketchup live shows. Come out, see me. I look probably nothing like you think I actually look like. That's how these things work. Joel, he'll be there, I think. Maybe. We gotta find out if someone can work for him at the prison. Maybe Ben will show up. People like Ben. Matt will not be joining us on this tour. He had a little run-in with something that I forgot to make up, so he's not going to be there. And Vincent, I believe he is only allowed to leave the state in matters of emergencies, but don't quote me on that. That may be fake news. Back to the list. Number 10, similar to number 11, Earthbound. Earthbound's another game where a ton of people really love it, and then there's me who's like, about it. The battle system is just, it's like old Dragon Quest, I'm thinking. It's just not terribly interactive. There's not a ton of things you can really do. It's basically just attack, you use magic, you use an item. Repeats until enemy dead. The humor in the game is interesting, we'll say. It's kind of very... what's the best way to describe it? It's low-key. It's not like Big Bang Theory smash you over the head with repetitive, obvious joke. Here comes the setup, here's the punchline. It's a lot more small things throughout, which I don't really want to ruin by going into it. Also, I don't remember any, so... Earthbound, the story even is kind of weird. I guess that's by design, but I wasn't too into it. I've played most of the way through this game, as I remember. I made it decently far. It definitely made it to the point of getting all the characters, which doesn't even happen until maybe halfway through the game. But I don't think I've made it much past that. I usually get kind of bored and just move on after that. So a good game, it's worth playing to see if you can get into it. If you can't, I don't blame you. Number 9, Mario Kart. Definitely the best racing game on the system. A lot of fun racing and playing the extra games. I'm trying to think if I'm thinking of the 64 version, because a lot of these games have just like repeated versions on 64. Did the Super Nintendo version? The Super Nintendo version didn't have a battle mode where you could play against other people and just like shoot things at them. I'm pretty sure that only started on 64. I think just Mario Kart was just races, but yeah, it added in like the shells, bananas, stars, mushrooms, all that fun stuff from the Mario games, along with the Mario characters. We did have a debate whether this is a Mario game or not, because it does have characters that are not Mario characters in it. Kind of. Sort of. I remember always playing as Mario because that was the obvious choice. My brothers always played as either the Koopa Troopa or Donkey Kong or Bowser. Using the giant guys to just bowl people over in front of you is always a good time. Number 8, Street Fighter. I always preferred Street Fighters to Mortal Kombat. Controls just felt a lot more fluid. The combos were similar, but a little more fun and easy to pull off, and just an overall better fighting game. I felt like I didn't need to see blood and people's heads being ripped off. I just enjoyed beating people up. Characters in that game, I always enjoyed Zangief for some reason, even though he's beyond useless. And E Honda, so like giant dudes, for some reason I always liked. Even though they had no projectile attacks, it was always just try and get up as close as you can to them, hit them with a 100-hand slap or something. Usually didn't work out so well, but you know, it's better than using like the cheater characters like Ken and Rue. Nobody likes playing as them. Number 7, Donkey Kong Country. A really fun platforming game, though I would also describe its controls as slippery. It felt like you'd be trying to do stuff and then you just kind of slip off the edge of fall into nothingness. It would happen a little too much for my liking. It is a decent 2-player game because you can play as one of the characters, and whoever you're playing with can play as the other character, and once one of you dies, then the other player can take over. You can switch out who you're playing as. There's a lot of secrets, hidden areas, which is kind of cool to try and find if you're into secret hunting, stuff like that. I would say one of the better platforming games. I can understand why they chose this one. A lot of people I saw complaining that they didn't choose the better sequel games like Diddy Kong, or even the third one after that, Dixie, was it? I think she was pretty sure that was it. Not entirely sure. But yeah, a good game. I enjoyed there was like a code you could put in where you would just play the bonus levels as the animals, which is kind of cool. I always enjoyed doing that. And it's a pretty long game. It takes a lot to get through. There's little bonuses for completing stages different ways, as I remember. So pretty cool. Definitely up there on the list for a reason. Number 6, Super Mario RPG. A pretty strong RPG on its own. I remember the story being very fun and funny. It introduced a lot of characters that we hadn't seen before, which was kind of weird. You'd think they would throw in, like, you don't ever play as Luigi in the game. I don't know if you ever even see Luigi in the game. It didn't make a whole lot of sense that they wouldn't have added him in. Much like most RPGs, you've got your party. You do actually get to choose the characters you want in your party at one point, I believe. It's not until towards the very end unfortunately, because throughout the game it kind of forces you to use the same characters so that the story makes sense. The one big downfall to this is it has like the button time events all the time. It's like every attack you make, you have to be paying attention and hitting buttons at the right time to get the critical damage, which can get kind of annoying with an RPG. Some RPGs you just want to sit back and relax and do some battles, not be staring at the thing the entire time, trying to time everything out. It is still really fun being able to like switch up the equipment. You've never seen anything like this before with the Mario characters. Fortunately, you don't ever see like Malo and Gino ever again, as far as I know. I haven't seen them in any other games I can remember. Unfortunate, so it's still a really good RPG on its own. There's even like some platforming going on in the game, some interesting characters that you'll never see again, but a very good game still. Number 5, Super Metroid. I saw a lot of lists that had this game easily top 3, some even as number 1. It's a really good game. I can see why they would do that. I enjoyed it a lot. I've played it through many times. It's not a terribly difficult game is the one thing about it. It's very easy to just have so many missiles and so much health that you're not really worried about any of the minor enemies. Really the only thing that's going to kill you in this game is the bosses, and even those are not terribly difficult to get past. Really the only difficulty you'll run into is like the walls of you must have this item to pass through here. As we talked about with Joel in the last episode, he's like, I'm stuck, I don't know where to go, I don't have the item I need to go where I need to go. What am I supposed to be doing here? That's really going to be your biggest challenges. Uncovering all the secret areas, and even then the secret areas aren't really secret areas. It's pretty obvious if you just look at the map, go, oh, there's an empty space here, clearly there's something going on, what do I need to do? But there, even knowing like the location of all this stuff to this day, I still find like new things about, oh, there was an energy tank here, didn't know about that. Oh, I could fly up here and destroy this, that's kind of cool. It's a variety of weapons and stuff you get, but it doesn't really matter, as eventually you'll just get the most overpowered, or not even overpowered, just like the strongest weapon in the game, and there's no point in going back to your other weapons after that. I kind of wish they would have made it so that's like the different weapons did different things that were a little better. But yeah, it's a really good game. Started a genre of its own, the Metroidvania games, of course, which I really enjoy playing a variety of, so it's definitely up on the list for that reason. Number 4, Mega Man X. I saw a lot of lists that had this in like the 15 to 20 range. I have no idea why. I think this is easily the best Mega Man game I've ever played, at least. Kind of interesting bosses. It introduced the power-ups for X, like the dash that you would have to get, the ability to cycle through your abilities you've gained with the L and R buttons was really nice. Instead of having to pause, select the one you want, exit back out of the menu, okay, now we can get back to playing the game. A lot of hidden things, the ability to increase your health, energy packs, I think they're called, energy something or other, that you could gain, and then when you're at full health, as you gain the little pellets of energy, instead of just being completely useless, they fill up your energy tanks. That's what they were, energy tanks. You know, I'd figure it out eventually. Was a nice introduction. Even like the little hidden thing of getting the Hadouken if you fall into a pit 3 times, which is kind of doesn't make any sense, but whatever. A lot of neat enemies, a lot of callbacks to the old Mega Man games. I liked all the bosses. Their interactions is like, if you beat the ice stage, then you go to the fire stage. Well, the ice has now melted over the lava, and now you can go into these areas you otherwise couldn't have. So it's kind of cool, these like little interactions they built in as you beat the different levels. It's a really good game. not terribly difficult. It's the only thing about it's, again, really the only thing that's going to give you issues is the bosses. And even then, if you have the right weapon to deal with them, they're pretty simple themselves. Coming into this, I knew what I wanted my top 3 to be. It was just deciding in which order I wanted to put them that was the issue. I finally came down to this conclusion. Number 3, Legend of Zelda. Hard to put any Legend of Zelda games low on a list of Nintendo games. Obviously, they protect that series really well, don't release a ton of games for it, so the ones they do release have to be really good. And this is a really good game. A lot of discovery elements, introduced different worlds, introduced magic, introduced a whole bunch of new things that we get with like current Zeldas now that are all really nice. Just a fun overall game, fairly long as well, which is nice. You know, just want a game like some of the earlier games like Super Punch-Out, Contra 3, those you can beat in 45 minutes to an hour if you really know what you're doing. There's games like Zelda, Mega Man, things like that actually take a little effort and time. Yeah, just a really fun game. Upgrading the swords to different stuff, all of that. Fun times. I went back and forth on which one I wanted to be number 1 and which one I wanted to be number 2. Finally decided that number 2 would be Final Fantasy VI. And I'm not even sure this is the best Final Fantasy for the system. I might actually prefer 4 over 6. I go back and forth a lot. The stories in both are really, really good. I really like them. It's not the generic good guys are always winning. It's bad things happen sometimes. How are you going to deal with it? 6 has the upper hand in customization. You can really do a lot of different things. Equipping the Espers can give different magic to different people. So you could have like characters who you would normally think of as not the healing type as just your guys who heal. You could have your people who are not necessarily the strongest fighters as your strongest fighters if you just set them up in that way. Like the ability to use relics, all of that stuff. The ability to change out your party. You get about 16 or so characters as I remember. And being able to put them into your party as you like. I think my main party was always Sabin, Cyan, usually Go-Go, I think, with like the Blitz, because I mean, if you just bum rush everything, you're just gonna kill it really fast. And then the 4th, who would I usually use? I always like Locke a lot, just because he had the ability to steal, and there was a lot of good things to steal. Terra as the main character, using a bunch of magic was always fun. Edgar with the drill and chainsaw. It just kind of depended what mood I was in, what the 4th person would be, really. And of course, number 1 has to be Super Mario World. I've said before, this is my all-time favorite game, the game I would probably pick over any other one. It's just a good game. It's Mario. It's all the best things about Mario in one game. Running around, jumping, grabbing stuff, getting coins. Somewhat open world, so where you can go wherever you want at any time. Multiple exits, hidden stages, haunted houses, all kinds of fun stuff. I did see like one list when I was looking through these that had put this game at like 15 or 16, which seemed a little ridiculous. Yeah, I even saw some that had Yoshi's Island as the number 1 game, which didn't make any sense to me. A little crazy. Yeah, there's not much more I can say about Super Mario World. It's just a great game. Let's look, since we're done with my list, at the Kotaku list, I wanted to just kind of compare since I was talking about other lists. They go 21 since they ranked Star Fox 2 and I didn't. They have at 21 Super Ghouls and Ghosts for basically the same reasons I had. Bad controls, double jumping sucks. Yeah, just not a good time. At number 20 they had Star Fox. Saying, yeah, they didn't like the polygons, which I can understand, that's fine. And then Star Fox 2 at number 19, not going to really talk about since I don't know very much. Number 18, Contra 3. Yeah, they mention it's a very short game. I watched some videos of it. You can beat this game in like 40 minutes if you just kind of run to the right and go. It's 17, Super Punch-Out, which they just say, it's fine. It's boxing. There's nothing too special to it, which I pretty much agree with. 16, they have Kirby's Dream Course, with their one, I guess 2 lines. This is a Kirby golf game. I guess it's also fine. Yeah, if that's all you have to say about a game, I would not rank it above some of the other games they would have, but yeah, it's their list, I guess. Number 15, they have F-Zero. They say it's an okay racing game, but of course Mario Kart's better. 14, Kirby Superstar. Says just not as good as Kirby's Adventure. The mini games are nothing special. 13, Super Castlevania 4. Platforming is a little clunky, but using a whip is always a fun time. Which, hey, whatever you're into, I guess. Number 12, they have Street Fighter 2. They think it's a little rusty compared to more modern games, which I suppose. I remember it still being fairly good control-wise. Some of the jumping's a little but yeah. Number 11, Super Mario Kart. They're basically just comparing it to like the newer games, which you can't really do. It doesn't make sense to compare a 20-some-year-old game to a game that just came out this year. It's a little ridiculous, but whatever. Number 10, Yoshi's Island. They think it's really good, but too easy. Yeah, I remember it not being terribly difficult. Number 9, Donkey Kong Country. They say like the screen scrolling is weird, which, yeah, I didn't mention that. It is very weird. Like sometimes you'll be too far ahead on the screen and not be able to see what's coming up, which is an issue with a lot of really crappy games. You would think in a game like Donkey Kong Country wouldn't have that kind of issue, but it does. Number 8, Mega Man X. And yeah, they agree that Mega Man X is the best, because of course it is. And the bosses are neat, which I agree with. Number 7, Secret of Mana. They say there's bugs and hit detection is weird, which, yeah, that might be some of what I didn't like about the game. It was a lot of like standing in place and just mashing the button to hit something over and over again. It's got kind of old really fast. I just didn't enjoy it. Number 6, Super Mario RPG. Not a whole lot. They kind of mention the newer games. Combat's sluggish. Some of the time moves, the timing on them is weird. Number 5, Earthbound. Yeah, it's okay. They think the story's a lot better than I do. Number 4, Super Mario World. They say it's a perfect 2D platformer, but then rank it number 4. They say it holds up well and better than any other side-scrolling platformer you can get today. Yet it's number 4. Whatever. Number 3, Super Metroid. Say there's still a lot of secrets that people are still figuring out about the game. Morph Ball is cool. I'll agree with that. Number 2, Link to the Past. Says the giant world is really nice. Combat's nice. Probably one of the best Zelda games. Or would be the best Zelda game until Breath of the Wild. And number 1, Final Fantasy VI. Can't really argue too much with their list. I think Earthbound might be a little high at number 5. Mega Man X is a little low at 8. Other than that, I more or less agree with their list, so good job. You did something right. So that's the games on the SNES Classic. If you managed to pick one up and want to know what games to play first, what's good, what's bad. As far as the RPGs go, definitely 6 would be the first one. Final Fantasy VI would be the one I recommend. It's worth checking out, even like the bad games. Maybe you really like Kirby's Dream Course. Maybe you like the challenge of Super Ghouls and Ghosts. Super Punch-Out does have some interesting interactions. There's like these super chubby characters that you can't hit in the stomach, otherwise they just laugh at you and it does no damage to them. And maybe you like Yoshi's Island a lot more than I do. It's definitely a different kind of game. So that's it for this week. Back next week with our 1-year anniversary episode. We're going to be talking spooky things since Halloween is coming up. We'll find out what direction the show will be going in. Are we done after a year? Who knows? Maybe we are. Maybe 1 year is enough catching up. Plugs, I'm not going to annoy you with. Just go to our stuff. It's all Thursday Ketchup. If you want to be on the show, we would be excited to have you. ThursdayKetchup@gmail.com. You can send an email there. Just go to my Twitter. Thursday Ketchup. @Thursday Ketchup. You have to do that, the kids say. And that is all for this week. Come back next Thursday when we will catch up again.